Live at local morning radio, coming to you from the studios of Magic Broadcasting on Laird. This is the Kramer Show. This is the Kramer Show. The phone is now open, and the phone operators are standing by. Turn down your radio when you call. Pay attention and be ready to go. 850-233-9988.
I said if you're having the best time of your life right now, mean it. Yes, sir.
This is Kramer. Kramer.
Welcome into the program. We appreciate you being with us this morning. You don't even know. Come in for a group hug. Now, I don't mean to pull a Biden on you, but I'm going to come in. I'm going to get really close. And I'm going to let you know up front that when we hug, all right, we're about to do it. And when we hug, I'm coming in and I'm going to sniff your hair. And I'm going to kiss your ear. But you don't worry about that. That's just a sign of affection, and that's how we do this. So, ready? All right, here we go. 1, 2, 3. All right. Ah. God, you smell delicious. Okay. All right. Break. We have Scott Major on the phone. Scott Major's with us. Scott Major from the Major Paruas and the Storm Help Team, stormhelpteam.org. His phone number, 844-800-LAWS, 844-800-LAWS. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and the only. And let me tell you something. When we talk about hair, this man has the best hair. Ladies and gentlemen, Scott Major is with us. What kind of products?
What can I say after that kind of intro?
Well, come on. I mean, what kind of products do you use in that head of hair you have?
That's kind of impressive. That's great stuff, man.
What's going on, buddy? How are you?
Talk about this morning. I'm great. What do you want to talk about this morning?
Well, what do you want to do? Do you want to go? Do you want to go politics nationally? You want to go regional politics? Do you want to talk about insurance? What do you want to talk about? It's your hour, actually.
I think we should start with where the world is going as a result of the hair sniffing nightmare. You know, if everybody has to engage in the Nancy Pelosi, everybody has to treat everybody like they have a cold in order to shake hands or interact with them, I think the world is going to a terrible place. I mean, as human beings, we want to love one another and to care about one another. And I think this situation, whether you agree or disagree with, the vice president, or whether or not you agree or disagree with his values or want him to be in the race or not, the idea that, out of the 150 million people that he has hugged, that because he has somehow hugged somebody wrong, that invading into space that someone unilaterally decided 10 years later was not appropriate, you start to wonder, where are the boundaries and how is the rules being determined? Are we determined by how a woman or a person who's being hugged unilaterally determines that? Is our system going to be that no one is allowed to touch anyone ever again? Because if so, they might be considered to be acting inappropriately, and then the entire, loving unit falls apart because we are trained as young people that you're not allowed to hug anybody under any circumstances for any reason. I think that the nonsense of us believing that politicians aren't a little whack themselves in most cases, and that we're looking for a perfect politician is absurd. Although I don't necessarily agree that we have competent politicians in Congress, because we are yelling and screaming all the time about the nonsense. When Adam Schiff can get up and say there's still collusion, when Smallwell can get up and say the 302s and the Pfizer reports are still positive proof that, justified an investigation, I think the system is fallen apart. But having said that, I think it's more about where the absurdity of this entire system has gone. Have we gone so far left or so far out of the mainstream where you have these insane radical statements being made like free college and free jobs and free everything for everyone, because that would appeal to our youth. And that would make them say, well, of course I want free college, and of course I want free jobs, and of course I want free money, so I'm obviously going to vote for somebody like that. And who cares about the cost? It's not going to affect me, when they're ignorant and don't know that it will destroy their lives and destroy this country. Because it sounds good, and it sounds easy, and all of us would love to have free money and free food and free jobs. How about free homes? Since we have the homeless, how about AOC and all these people getting to say free homes for everyone? I mean, the concept has gotten absurd. Because go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I just wanted to interject real quick. I find it pretty, ironic in a way that you even have Republicans that are kind of standing up and defending Joe Biden when it would be really easy to pile on. But I respect the idea that there are so many Republicans that are going, guys, come on, this is loony. This is crazy. Joe, look, if you're a millennial and you get your news through memes on Facebook, that's one thing. But for the rest of us who are looking at this through the lens of common sense, I don't get the impression at all. And let's also, by the way, legally speaking, let's keep in mind, Joe Biden did not do anything, has not been accused of sexual improprieties, sexual aggression, rape, or anything like that. People just say that he gets into their space. We've all met someone who does that. Rachel and I were talking about it yesterday.
Sure.
Sometimes people just don't realize that, hey, you know what? That's not me, and I don't want you touching me or sniffing me or coming in for a hug. Some people just don't like that. And as a vice president, how many people do you think he met on a daily basis and, just tried to show that some form of intimacy or a level of appreciation or whatever you want to call it? I don't think that this is that big of a deal. I really just don't. And I got heat about this yesterday on the phones for defending, Joe Biden. And look, we got to get out of the habit of always assuming that anything that anyone does on the other side is wrong and egregious. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think that, again, it goes back to the larger point of where is society going, that all of us tolerate attacks, and everybody is believed regardless of whether they're being truthful or not. In other words, there are people out there that are questioning whether you should believe these people, yet they were very quick to believe everything that was said about Kavanaugh, even though there was no corroborating support.
Exactly.
In other words, there are people that want the report, the Mueller report, released immediately without redactions, which is illegal, while at the same time they won't allow the dossier to be released with the 302s underneath it that would tell us exactly what happened. This selective kind of approach just shows that the world has become way too politicized, way too manipulated, and I'm hoping that the groundswell, the response to many people, particularly after this report finding where people start to believe that they can't believe everything everybody says and that all these people have ulterior motives, will maybe get people to be more sensible and say, you can disagree with people, but you ought to do it in a friendly environment. We need to stop this angry, upset, just, attacking, miserable approach that we have to, if we don't like somebody, we just blackball them, or the Southern Poverty Law Center that artificially labels people as hate groups in order to destroy their lives when they have nothing wrong with them. The investigations by the IRS during the Obama campaign into Republican charities and nonprofits, just because they were, against, the Democratic Party. All this stuff needs to stop, and we need to have intelligent discourse, but at the same time, all of us should be angry when people spend time just attacking people and just manipulating their power, leveraging their power to get to an ultimate goal. Obviously, there are people that, for whatever reason, they hate Trump. They don't care in Congress whether or not he's accomplished anything. They don't care whether he has the lowest unemployment for African Americans. They don't care whether or not he's done more for the military than any president. They don't care about that stuff. They just personally hate him, so they've decided they're going to leverage their position in Congress, their position in a very powerful place that they've been lucky to be nominated for. They're going to leverage that position to go on a personal crusade that has nothing to do with helping America. If you spent all the years that you spent on this Mueller report redoing our infrastructure, getting housing for the Panhandle people who are suffering from the hurricane, doing all the things that we really need to do, fixing the immigration problem that is now it cost us $70 billion and we're only in April. If you did that, we'd be a lot better place. You could do that as a group and still disagree with Trump and still have differences of opinion and still believe whatever you want to believe about Hillary Clinton or Mike Pence or whoever you want. And I think that's what's unfortunate about our society is that we've just gotten so polarized, so mean, so critical that we're unwavering and unaccepting of anybody's views. And we're teaching our youth that that's right. And we're teaching our youth, like in the Smollett case, that lying works, that you should tell people to lie because as long as you ultimately get your way, that's all that matters. We have to stop that. You and I and the listeners and people who care have to say we got to take back our country and we have to realize that we need to work together. Even if we disagree, we have to put above the name-calling and the polarization and the leveraging of power for personal gain and think about what is best for our community, what is best for our world. How do we help the homeless that are now in the Panhandle? How do we help people that are around us? The way we help them is we get Congress to help us. You want to stop immigration? Stop lying that there's no immigration crisis. That's just an absolute bald-faced, absurd, despicable lie. Stop lying. And anybody who believes that can go down the border and see it's absurd. Why don't we just fix the problem? You can disagree about how to fix it, but why don't we just fix the problem? But it is angering, frustrating, and I'm hoping that we get a groundswell of people that say enough is enough with the lying and promoting human beings to lie in order for their personal agenda or to get ahead in life. That's got to stop, and I think we all working together could get it to stop if we just hold people accountable when they lie. If we say, you're wrong, Adam Schiff, whether or not you find a sentence in the 400-page report that somehow sounds nefarious, you were wrong. You should be either thrown out of Congress or you should have to apologize to the people. Jesse Smollett, just like I told you, we should sue him for the money. If the guy doesn't pay, if he pays, it's an admission of liability. If he doesn't, we sue him. We go and get all that information that was sealed, and then we expose him for the liar that he was. He lied. It's unfortunate. He should have fallen on his sword and said, I made a horrible mistake. He didn't. But if there are no consequences in society for lying, what's going to be next? When you rob somebody, you're going to say, well, I really was doing that to help my family, so it's okay. We shouldn't charge you with a crime. If you kill somebody, you shouldn't charge you with a crime because really, you're a human being. You just were doing it for a different reason. I mean, it's absurd what is going on, and I think we ought to take back our country.
God, I would hate to get into an argument with Scott Major. Scott Major from Major Paruas and the Storm Help Team. Let's take a break. We'll get some calls on the other side. If you got a question, Scott's here to answer your questions. Post Hurricane Michael legal stuff, anything to do with a contractor, an insurance company, a mortgage company. What's going on with you? 233-9988. We'll be right back. Stand by.
This is the Kramer Show. Kramer Show. More to come on NewsTalk at 101.
Yes, all the questions everybody wants to know.
We're here. Call us 850-233-9988. This is the Kramer Show on NewsTalk at 101.
With Scott Major this morning. Scott Major's on with us. Major Paruas and the Storm Help Team. StormHelpTeam.org. Rachel, Jim hung up on line 13. What was Jim wanting? He was wanting to talk about the mortgage companies?
Yes, he had a question about the mortgage companies withholding money.
Is that something that happens fairly often?
Sure. Let's talk a little bit about that. What's happening a lot of times is these mortgage companies are holding money in violation of their own mortgages. Most people don't even know what their mortgage says. And when you got a mortgage for your house, you just had some mortgage broker or somebody help you. They have 4,000 pages of documents. You just went through and signed every one of them. You haven't really read them. But in your mortgage documents, they talk about whether or not proceeds of an insurance settlement need to go to them or not. And they provide for the circumstances under which they go to them. And I encourage people to not turn over their checks to the mortgage company until they know legally what their rights are. Because once they turn over the check to the mortgage company, they're going to have big fights with them. Oftentimes you can get let's say you got your mortgage through Bank United or Bank of America or some popular bank in the area. A lot of times if you bank there very often and you have a mortgage company on your check, you can literally go to the bank, talk to the manager, and they will sign over the check to you right there. People don't realize that. As long as you explain to them or bring to them, hey, I've got an estimate, I'm not pocketing this money, because the mortgage company has an interest in just making sure the property is properly protected and that, in fact, their value of their mortgage is not destroyed because you no longer are living in the house or the house is uninhabitable, thereby making the property worth far less than what the mortgage is. So you can often work with them and say, hey, I've got a detailed estimate from a general contractor or from a roofer, and I need you to release this. And if you want, you can get signed and you can call the roofer on the phone together. A lot of times they will sign over the check and then you can sign it, as opposed to signing it, giving to them, and becoming a prisoner of them. Also, too, sometimes you can contact a lawyer and have a lawyer get involved and help you with negotiating with the mortgage company, because sometimes it's just some communication issues. But the most important thing to understand is that the mortgage company has only one interest in mind. If you're not thinking that they're nefarious, if you're not thinking that they're evil, the interest is they want to make sure that their property that they have loaned money on is in the best condition it could be, because that gives value in case you don't pay on your mortgage. And so if you look at it from there and then you reach out to the appropriate people, whether they be a manager or somebody in charge who can make intelligent decisions, oftentimes you can resolve this with less stress than is typically associated with yet another delay from a mortgage company who just dumps the money in their account and they don't even know who you're speaking to, and you become another prisoner of yet another gatekeeper. So that's my thoughts.
To Earl, you're up with Scott Major. Go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Major, you were talking about homes a while ago. Kramer and I were discussing this. I have a idea. In disaster areas like this, even Nebraska, is a type of Section 8 program. Now, right now, renters are low on the totem pole. They're the lowest. But when you have a disaster like this and you have homes and stuff, come in and rebuild the homes and use a type of Section 8 program where people pay what they can afford. The government uses the tax money that we normally pay for rent, which basically going down is like a boat with a hole in the water. And we get nothing back for it. But if the government would reinvest and allow these people to stay in their homes or sell homes or build homes and do that for disaster areas, that would give a tax base, people the pride in ownership. People could actually afford homes. And I'm talking about people that are retired, that type. I'm not talking about other type people, far lower income. But that would seem to be an idea for disaster homes. Now, I don't know what the details would be, but what would be your opinion on that?
My opinion is, I think it's an excellent idea. Let me tell you my theory or some of my solutions that I think are similar to what you've just said, based on the storms that I've seen and the recovery period. I think that what should happen is we make sure we have opportunity zones, which are really designated areas that the government says that we're going to promote investors to come in and build in. And we expand those opportunity zones because then investors will come in and quickly build. We also can use, I don't know if many of the listeners know, but there are literally thousands and thousands and thousands of empty mobile homes that the government owns but isn't using. And you can mobilize those and bring those down. There's a third thing, and that is that there are ways to construct temporary housing. There are companies that will put up, if you've ever needed a shed or an airplane hangar or a place for your tractors, and you see those metal-like sheds. Well, I know major companies, national companies, I know them personally, that will go and build those in 1/5 the time, 1/10 the time it would take to actually rebuild the house. And you could go to open land area and you could build an entire community literally in a month. And you can get people into these structured housings with the idea towards giving tax benefits to those landowners while at the same time housing a lot of people, and then get a groundswell of national and local organizations that will contribute to a private fund that then will fund the food and the sanitation and the other needs associated with that. I'd love if I had the appropriate people and national organizations to be in charge of something like that, to be able to go in and feed and house tens of thousands of people, which we could if we did that.
Yes, sir, but it's not just feeding and housing. It's giving people the pride and home ownership again. We don't have that anymore. And I would guess it'd be a success rate of maybe 40%. Right now, success rate is 0.
And I agree with you, and I'm complimenting what you're already saying. I couldn't agree with you more that whether you call it Section 8 housing or any type of solution that promotes the homeowner or the building owner
Agreed.
to do that, it would be great.
Scott Major with us. Call us up. Get on the air, 233-9988. We'll be right back.
The Kramer Show will be back in a sec on NewsTalk at 101. The Kramer Show. 6 to 9 weekdays on NewsTalk at 101.
Scott Major with us today. Scott Major from Major Paruas and the Storm Help Team. Their phone number, 844-800-LAWS. 844-800-LAWS. Website, stormhelpteam.org. Scott, smart on the political level. Right on point with everything that he said today so far. And can answer just basically any kind of question that you have concerning post-Hurricane Michael. The other one was, Rachel, what was the other one about the appraisal clause?
Yes. So if an insurance company invokes the appraisal clause, what does that do to the insured's rights? And also, does that prevent them from being able to sue the insurance company?
Good question.
From Norma.
The answer is that there is an appraisal clause in almost every insurance policy. What it is it's a clause that essentially, if you think about arbitration, that's a more common word, or a separate proceeding whereby the insurance company or you can eliminate litigation, both good or bad, by electing this appraisal clause. If they do, your rights to litigate are reduced. They're not eliminated, and I'll explain why. But it's important because what happens is you don't go to court. You go sort of an informal procedure where you hire an appraiser or a public adjuster or whatever you want to label them, and they hire their own appraiser, and they go out to your property and they evaluate your property. And if they agree on a number, let's say you got a roofing problem and you have $30,000 worth of damages, and your expert, your appraiser, and their appraiser agree that $28,000 is what should be paid, that's the end of your case, no litigation. $28,000 gets paid. The insurance company has to pay it. But there's no litigation. If they come up with $15,000 and agree, then that's what you're stuck with. If the two appraisers can't agree, there's a rule which says a third appraiser, that is an umpire, like a mini judge, will be appointed either by agreement of the two or a court will appoint them, and that person serves as the referee, the judge, and whatever they decide, it ends your rights. Now, in order to invoke the appraisal clause of your policy, it's a very, very important thing that almost nobody knows. There's a statute in Florida, 627.7015. That statute says if you want to invoke appraisal, you have to have sent, you as the insurance company, have to have sent a offer to mediate the case. That is an offer to go to an informal dispute resolution proceeding. If you don't make that offer, you waive your right to elect appraisal if you're the insurance company. If you're an insured, you always can elect appraisal. So if some fight over or litigate over those items. Additionally, in appraisals, and the last thing I'll say is that they do not mean that the insurance company can't claim there's a coverage problem. So if they elect appraisal and then they appraise and find out that you have, some sort of window damage, let's say, the insurance company can still say that's not covered under the insurance policy. So even if you spend money and go through appraisal, and by the way, you have to pay for appraisal. So you have to pay your appraiser and they have to pay their appraiser. And that cost is borne by you and by them equally. So you're going to have a cost associated with that. But the benefit is that you could end your case sooner by going to appraisal. So I encourage people with all that information, and we could talk an hour about appraisal, get good legal advice so your specific claim is evaluated by a lawyer so you know, is it a good idea to elect appraisal or to fight their appraisal, or who should I get as an appraiser so that you can properly be protected in the decision that you make. Is that helpful?
Oh, absolutely. Norma, that was for you. If you can, if you call up, we're going to get the calls as soon as we can. 850-233-9988, 850-233-9988. Let me ask you this.
844-800-LAWS.
Sorry? Yeah, or definitely.
844-800-LAWS if they got questions.
Absolutely. If it's off the air, I can't tell you how many times. I told you this the other day. I get people on Facebook, on email and stuff asking me, it'll be noon, and they'll say, hey, I heard you talking to the attorney. I want his phone number. I want yada, yada. And I always give it to them. How many times do you, after you have to get involved to kind of push, and I'm gathering from you over the past several months that someone like a Scott Major going in and pushing to unclog the wheel, so to speak, get things moving. Is there oftentimes, or are there? What is the percentage of time where you actually have to litigate and actually go to court?
Well, I would say that instead of doing it in the form of a percentage, because it depends on the type of case, I would say a lot of times when we get involved, we can interact with the desk level adjuster in a more productive way because they know what's coming. And we can have an intelligent discussion with them, and oftentimes they'll say, Scott, I know who you are, I need this, or I'm willing to pay that, but not this, or I will pay you the undisputed amounts, but we're going to have to fight over these items. It's amazing how much success we have with starting that dialogue. Some law firms have an approach that they immediately file suits, and literally hundreds and if not thousands of suits are being filed right now. But I can tell you as a practical matter that when you're 5 months out, step one is to try to get you guys the money. Step two is to fight about it if you have to. Sometimes they'll ask for a reinspection. They want to go out there, or they want you to give a more detailed estimate because your original estimate isn't valuable. But the concept is that we get a lot of success with our discussions and getting involved because they know that we're good lawyers. They know that we'll sue if we have to, but they know we're unusually sensitive to the reality that they would like to get it closed if possible too, and they appreciate the fact that we give them a chance rather than just running to the court and filing suit.
850-233-9988, 850-233-9988. I would also assume that at this point, it's really important that people, what are people going to do after their, what is it called? The money that you get for additional living expenses.
ALE.
After that's gone, if you get what is a normal, like 20% or no, 10% of the value of the policy or the value of the home.
Right. It's not much. And a lot of times people are going to run out, and it creates incredible, hysteria. And that's why you and I, for the last 5 months, have been urging people, get a hold of the Scott Majors of the world, because before you know it, you're going to run out of this money. And then you're not going to have money to fix your house because your house hasn't been started yet. and then you're going to have all kinds of problems with housing and other things. We can't overemphasize the urgency of getting lawyers involved now if you haven't done it already, because once you burn through your ALE, it's gone. And most people who bought their insurance policy, as you and I have talked about, they didn't even have any idea what was in it. They didn't even know what it said.
Right.
And they certainly weren't educated. If you can name me a caller in the 5 months that you've been doing this that actually told you that the insurance agent discussed coverage A, B, C, and D, I'll give you 5 T-shirts, because I've been doing it for decades and I haven't found a single one. You know, there's maybe one agent I know that I trust that goes over all of those things with a client and explains it to them. And mostly because people just say, I want my homeowner's insurance. And the person says, yeah, well, here's a good example. You know, you should do this. And it's low cost. And so people buy it based on cost, having no idea that things like this are going to occur. And so they don't insure for that. So I think it's really important. And you and I have been talking about this too. We need to do a show, maybe a separate hour, on now you're out there. What kind of insurance should you buy? How much coverage A should you buy? How much coverage B? What should you insure for in your content so that you don't have this problem again? And I think that's a separate discussion, but a really important one for people to understand. But most people didn't even know what their policy said, didn't even know the exclusions. If you have a fence on your property and your agent didn't tell you that that fence is excluded because they didn't even look at your property, or they didn't realize that the policy they sold you had an exclusion for fences that weren't that are detached, I mean, that's just horrible for you. You just bought insurance for nothing. So it's so important that you recognize what your policy says and get the experts to explain it to you.
Let's go to Walt. Walt, you got a question for Scott Major from Major Paruas and the Storm Help Team? Go ahead. Walt. Hello, Walt. Rachel, what was Walt needing?
He didn't clarify all the way.
All right, okay. So ALEs, once the ALE runs out, I mean, you know, what are your options at that point? I mean, that's kind of scary to think that we're at this, 5-6 month mark, and these ALEs are going to be running out. If you think about the cost of living here, and we were talking about this earlier in the 6 o'clock hour, cost of living here is double what it was, or
insane.
Triple.
Insane.
So if people don't have a whole lot of cash, plus they're being kicked out while their house is being repaired, whatever. I mean, things are about to get really, really tough.
You're right, and there's not a lot of remedy for you. I can tell you right now, there is not a lot of remedy, because whatever you purchase for your insurance, that's the maximum of your additional living expenses. There aren't other ways to get more living expenses. That's what you contracted for and what the insurance company is responsible for. Now, there's an exception. The exception is that if the insurance company acted unreasonably, if they acted in bad faith in delaying your claim, then they may be responsible for 3 times the amount of money of your damages, or for any consequential damages, which could include housing, emotional distress, other types of damages. So you have to look at your particular situation and see, did the insurance company come out timely and just not pay you and not offer explanation? It all runs back to what you and I talked about what has the insurance company done? What is the status of your claim? Have you written them to make sure your claim is both open and that they're not waiting on anything from you? And if so, you may be able to find a way to get more living expense money because they've acted in bad faith.
850-233-9988. Yeah, I mean, that's if that's the case and that's what's going on, that'd be super. But you do have people that are still trying to go through this whole thing on their own, and they don't even know. They're not getting, the insurance companies aren't getting back to them. So they're feeling like, hey, this net that we have had. Can you negotiate for more on the ALE than the 10%? How does that work, Scott?
When you buy insurance, you basically can buy any amount of insurance that an insurance company will give you. So if you wanted to purchase more insurance for your structure, there's probably an insurance company somewhere that will give you more insurance. We had a case come in where a woman has a $400,000 house and she has $900,000 worth of insurance. That's a little bit of overkill.
Whew,
but I can tell you that insurance companies do sell you policies, okay, just about on any amount. It's just a function of money. It's just a function on what you want to pay. But you can insure just about anything from anything. And I can tell you, when we go to our insurance segment, there's all kinds of things you want to insure against that people haven't thought about. Like, what about, all of your computer information? And when your computer gets destroyed and it has your private, all your QuickBooks and all your private information on there, how do you get that back? Well, you can insure for that. There's all kinds of things that you can insure for that maybe 20 years ago people didn't think about, but are important now. And most good agents will insure you. And if you don't have a good agent, dial the 844-800 number, 800 Laws number, and we'll give you suggestions of insurance agents, that can really explain to you what options you have, what's the best scenario under your case, and how you maximize where you need and also minimize where you don't. So if you don't have a lot of contents, maybe you don't need a lot of contents insurance. If you don't need as big an ALE because maybe you have a friend, or you have family in the area so you can always move to them, okay. If your structure, is significant and you need a lot more in structures, you can get that. Maybe you don't have a shed. Maybe you don't need as much coverage B, but you need to find out what you specifically need, identify what it would cost for you to replace that, and then insure for as close to that amount as possible. That's the way to properly buy insurance.
Let's take a break. We'll do some phones on the other side. 850-233-9988. 850-233-9988. You can also hit them up at 844-800-LAWS. 844-800-LAWS. We'll be back with Scott Major. Nick.
This is the Kramer Show. More to come on NewsTalk at 101.
It's News Talk at 101. It is the Kramer Show. Scott Major is with us today. You have a question? You want to hop on the air? Let's do it. 850-233-9988. Scott, make sure he's on with us. Somebody called during the break and told Rachel his name was Tom. He said, what's the point in buying more insurance and increasing your payment but getting more insurance if the insurance companies aren't paying out? And I'll let you comment on that. On the surface, that sounds like a good point.
Sure. I got a great answer for that. And that is that when you have an insurance policy that covers, let's say, your roof and your contents and your structure, and you have a storm, like I was subject to a hurricane, Hurricane Wilma, for example, and it damaged my house. The next day, I was on the phone with the insurance company. The next day, I wrote them a letter. I followed up with a letter the next day afterward. 5 days later, they had somebody out there, and they were writing the check. Insurance works, and insurance companies pay when you're aggressive and you follow through and you stay on top of them. And had they not paid in the 5 or 6 or 8 or 15 days that they did their investigation on, then I would have either elected appraisal or I would have filed a lawsuit. The key is you have to take advantage of what your rights are. Sometimes people aren't going to comply. Maybe they won't pay for any number of reasons. Maybe there's a good reason. You haven't given them enough information. Maybe there's less than a good reason. They just have other claims and haven't gotten to you. But I will tell you that in all the claims that I've handled, and there have been thousands that I've been involved with, everybody gets paid when they pursue litigation involving a covered claim. And you get paid one way or the other. And most of the time when I'm involved in the cases, almost every time, the insurance company has to pay way more than they ever imagined they paid to the insured, and then has to pay my fees, on top of that. And that is a motivation that insurance companies will heed and will not want to go forward. So, yes, you cannot be paid if you don't pursue your claims, but it is hard for people to grapple with the idea because they just don't know that when you make a claim, you just have to be persistent and you have to be responsive and understand there's a million claims that were filed. You're not the only claim. So even if you defend the insurance companies and say, well, they have a lot to do, they can't get out a million, people to inspect your property, squeaky wheel gets the oil. If you stay on top of them, you'll be paid in every single case where your contract provides for that, or a lawyer will help you to get you paid.
That's where you come in. I figured that was the answer, and I it's disgusting. We've talked about it over and over and over again, but it's disgusting that it has to come to that. You sign a contract, which is basically what, an insurance policy is. And you say, hey, I'm going to give you this amount of money. And should something happen, then you have to pay to repair it. You would think it's, I'm a black and white person. So you would think that, okay, I signed this. We agreed. They've got money. They got the money. Here's what happened to my house. Now give me the check. Let's do this. But that's just not the case. And, getting an attorney like Scott Major on the phone and getting him on your case seems to be the key to all this. 850-233-9988. 850-233-9988. Scott Major's phone number is 844-800-LAWS, and the website is stormhelpteam.org. What was that one, Rachel? Is there another one?
I had a guy asking about help for motorhomes. He's having a real hard time finding anybody to fight for him because he's in a motorhome.
Motorhomes are covered, and depending on your insurance policy, it will cover. I suggest you tell him that if you're in a motorhome and you're not getting paid, and we just had a guy call just a couple days ago about that, I can tell you that, call the 844-800-LAWS. We will help you. We will get you intelligence on what your rights are. We had a case where the motorhome, I'll tell quickly, where there was the insurance company actually went out, said it was $71,000 of damage. The adjuster then called the insured and said, I'm going to pay you $23,000. And the guy said, why? Your own adjuster went out there and said $73,000. They said, we're going to send another adjuster out there. The second adjuster went out and said, I think there's $81,000 of damage. Insurance company said, well, we're going to stick with our $23,000. I mean, that's just lunacy, insanity, malice, bad faith, and every other word you can think.
All right.
But the bottom line is, you got to sue.
Scott Major, to get in touch with him off the air, 844-800-LAWS. Absolutely fantastic hour, Scott. Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks for your time, and thanks for all you do for the county. Really appreciate it.
You as well, sir. Have a good rest of your day, Scott, all right?
You too. Take it.
More of the Kramer Show next. News Talk at 101.
It's super duper.